taken my approach of a 3-in-1 video for short Dragon Ball What Ifs. We have one for concepts that become memes in the community, and why many of them end up creating misinterpretations when taken from a joke to a genuine question.
So let's say, for the sake of argument, I destroy them with facts and logic.
First is actually one of my most requested videos, with those requests being from Dan TML, Index, and David Abraham, on what if I were in Dragon Ball. Though there's a lot of ways to go, such as becoming an overpowered Saiyan OC, the more accurate basis for this would be the reincarnated as Yamcha spin-off, and this being treated as one of the better options means the most likely scenario is being placed at the start of Dragon Ball at my current age and abilities. Honestly, this makes it pretty difficult to get anywhere in power, when the dedication and intensity to even get to the level Kuririn was at in his introduction is something that puts the world's best athletes to shame, so living out a power fantasy isn't going to happen. What I can do though is find directions to Capsule Corporation and wait for Bulma's group to return from Pilaf's castle to act as a fortune teller of sorts, in giving away light spoilers for the future, as a large amount of my What If videos have been pointing out how one change can drastically affect the outcome of the story. I'd make my predictions as light as possible, and say my abilities are hazy if I get asked any hard-hitting questions, like will Yamcha marry Bulma? It's after the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai though, that I'd tell Kuririn I may be able to enhance my abilities if he were to help me learn how to cultivate ki well, as taking his approach with meditation would be a good start to get ready to learn from Roshi and Karin during those 5 years, while using the skills I learned to make a living through lower level tournaments, such as those Pamputo competed in before the Tenkaichi Budokai. It's not until after the Cell arc that I'd make some major changes when advising Tenshinhan on the issues of him focusing on explosive bursts of ki, and tell him to reevaluate what Kaiô taught him and strengthen his body by mastering the principles of the Kaioken within the Room of Spirit and Time with Chaozu, enough for Tenshinhan to feel better about himself but not send the plot off the rails, and then focus on Yamcha as I do my best to help him get over his nervousness towards women, when reminding him he has a lot going for him, and to treat a potential date with the courage he did with battles. He may win, he may lose, in fact in battles he probably will lose, but he was there to experience them and improve from it.
Hopefully it'll work.
Or we'll have to hope this actually ends up being the hero's continuity. I then avoid changing too much until Super, where I'd make sure Goku takes the talisman with him to succeed in using the Mafuba against Zamasu. Or maybe it's best to let things escalate to Trunks go into a world where his mother is still alive? Comment below and say whether Trunks' efforts saving his world at a cost, or being given a new future with doubles of him and Mai, would be better for him psychologically. If going with this change, I'd advise Goku and Vegeta to focus on mastering Super Saiyan Blue, other than Tenshinhan's Kaioken being able to defeat Zaoyogi. Things flow naturally from there, as I become too old to keep doing more beyond maybe making money from a few third place prizes at the Tenkaichi Budokai. It's here that we see the issue with living in the Dragon world, as despite its fantastical nature, the world-shaking stakes and how drastically changing too much could be would make the safest option for oneself and the entire universe to be more like Yajirobe than Goku. From both totally human productions and Index, we have What If Goku and Kakarotto split as the result of a Bunrei, and it doesn't work when it's not as if Kakarotto was a split personality, and though you could argue his Ozaru nature is the yin to Goku's yang, the change that will come is in how their ki is split. Piccolo Daimao was far weaker than Kami was, due to him being made of a speck of evil in the latter's otherwise pure heart, so this Kakarotto, made from Goku's entirely pure heart, would have near non-existent ki, so much so his life life would be in danger almost immediately once Kami treats this as an alternative to removing Goku's tail. And when that very limited Genki runs out, Kami is forced to go to Otherworld to request Goku do his best efforts to go to Kaior, while a year is spent waiting to revive Goku, who then runs back about halfway across Snake Road and has Kakarotto sealed back in him. Because of this, Goku can't be revived with Earth's Dragon Balls after fighting Raditz, and has to use his one-day pass to fight Nappa and Vegeta. Knowing he can't fight Vegeta again, Goku doesn't object to Kuririn executing him. On Namek, Kuririn and Gohan still manage to get their potential unlocked, but no Vegeta to back them up means Zarbon and Dodoria find them once Frieza gets another soldier to deliver the scouters, not having the odd feeling of needing the Ginyu Tokusentai. They look for Nail for support, who easily defeats Frieza's soldiers, but this causes Frieza himself to target the group. As nobody is willing to give Frieza the password, he destroys Namek while Ginyu conquers Yardra. 17 and 18 are eventually unleashed, with nobody to stop them. Cell eventually draining enough people to try and become perfect, but none of Frieza or Code Cell's means he can't leave Earth, and is quickly met with a meaningless existence, until Babidi eventually controls him. Boo is eventually unleashed, far later than usual, as Babidi then sets his sights on conquering the Makai and attaining the Dragon Balls, likely wishing for immortality so Boo will no longer be a threat to himself. Meanwhile for Super, Beerus erases Frieza when he wakes up and quickly goes back to sleep, Cold managing the family business, until Granola uses the Dragon Balls to overthrow him and the Heaters, but can't find a way to counter Babidi if he invades Universe 7 once more. In GT's continuity, Babidi's group are quickly defeated by Rild, who turns Babidi into metal, as Baby faces no opposition to his plan. Overall, a very bad idea to split off something that wasn't there to begin with. Finally, from Speed Punch is perhaps the most infamous of these, in What If Goku was betrayed and trapped in the Room of Spirit and Time. The only time it will make any semblance of sense to do so would be when he goes in with Gohan, and Vegeta's feelings of wanting to stand at the top unrivaled get the best of him as he destroys the entire temple before going to fight Cell. Aside from Trunks losing so much respect for his father that he reveals Grade 3 to him and makes the battle go quicker, the result there is the same, until Cell receives an answer he could have never expected as to where Goku is, as he executes the two Saiyans before going about slowly wiping out humanity. With no Dragon Balls, there's nothing the others can do, especially once Cell targets them before Popov can fix the temple, as Cell puts an end to them and the whole Earth soon after. Inside the room, Goku and Gohan still master Super Saiyan, but reach the limit of what they can achieve currently, with both the overtraining and thinning food supplies damaging their bodies. With this, they fail to endure even another year, and even Gohan's rage from the situation isn't enough to make a hole between dimensions, as both eventually pass away from starvation. Meanwhile, Cell, destroying Earth, awakens Boo, who has barely any energy, and attempts to feed on a chocolate cell. Him being completely unfueled though, makes Cell strong enough to remain mobile, and once Boo is forced to turn him back to normal, Cell is annoyed enough by this to destroy Boo completely. Rinsu is incapable of gaining any part of Boo, but Cell has no reason to improve further, being very underprepared for facing Dabra eventually. Cell still retaining his desire to fight strong opponents and prove his superiority has him desire to spar with Dabra, as both eventually become strong enough to defeat the Tamagami. Babidi thereby gains control of the Makai and uses the Dragon Balls to wish for immortality. As he continues training his mind and body, Cell eventually gains the mentality to resist Babidi and focuses on being able to grow his tail as in GT, eventually finding an opportunity to absorb Babidi and use his magic to keep Dabra under control, while he goes around finding new opponents throughout Universe 7. It's by this point Cell encounters Moro, and is confident even after his ki is drained due to Babidi's immortality, and self-destructs. Though this does have him power up, It releases Babidi from him, but he still defeats Moro through attacking him too quickly. Babidi is unable to flee in time, as Cell absorbs him again. Cell then finds Broly and fights him, finding himself at a disadvantage when pushing Broly to his limits after targeting Paragus, but winning the war of attrition, keeping him alive when having found a challenging opponent who can help bring out his true perfection, as he eventually aims to gain the Black form. When Beerus wakes up, he encounters Cell when told what's been happening by Whis, and quickly approves of him becoming his successor. Cell's confidence in his immortality, though, has him try to oppose Xenor, which causes he and all of Universe 7 to be erased as punishment. As for the GT scenario, though Daima has solidly separated itself from the events of GT, that's not the same as its version of the Makai being separate. So Immortal Cell still rampages across the universe, and has become strong enough to defeat most of the machine mutants. His arrogance at his immortality causes him to let Baby wound him though, as a show of futility, which proves a perfect opportunity to be possessed, as Baby continues his conquest unchallenged. With this that we see with the flaws actually presented about the Room of Spirit and Time, means that it would never turn into some 2-hour overpowered Goku scenario. Thank you if having watched through these what ifs. Comment requests, like and subscribe, share it around, and if wanting to see the previous year's April Fool's what if, here it is on What If Chi Chi became a Hakaishin.